It's Friday, the 27th of March, and the news today, I think, will be alarming for quite a lot of people because the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has tested positive for coronavirus. I know there'll be, when he's better, satirists will take the mickey out of him for going to the NHS ward and shaking hands with the coronavirus patients. But look, Prime Minister, we want you to get better and get better very quickly. Perhaps even more alarmingly is that another cabinet minister, Matthew Hancock, has also tested positive, and the government chief medical officer, Sir Chris Whitty, he is now self-isolating because he has the coronavirus symptoms too. He almost certainly has got it. So I guess what it says, if the highest in the land, from Prince Charles to the Prime Minister, can get this illness, then anybody can. And that's been used very much as a means of reinforcing why social distancing matters so very much. Michael Gove took the lectern tonight at the daily briefing. He's in charge, it would appear, for the moment. And all of this on the day when we got some pretty grim news from Italy, that the death toll, which we thought was beginning to slow ever so slightly, but no, today was the biggest day yet, with 969 recorded deaths in Italy. So, yeah, it's pretty serious stuff. Now, at this briefing, there was some positive news, because I thought Sir Simon Stevens, who was there as the NHS boss, had some very strong, very positive things to say. He talked about the way in which the National Health Service, the Army, and volunteers were all coming together and getting ready. 6,000 coronavirus patients being treated at this moment in time in UK hospitals, but they're preparing to have the capacity to deal with 33,000 of them. And that, of course, is because we've got the Excel Centre. I don't know, they're actively recruiting staff to work there as we speak. We learned also today that the NEC in Birmingham is going to be used, and the National Convention Centre in Manchester will equally be used. And these will be a lot more beds, and of course, sadly, morgues as well. But you do feel that on the bedside of things are moving fast, moving quickly. And I thought Simon Stevens looked to be pretty much on top of that. What we don't quite know is what our ventilator numbers really are. But there are different kinds of ventilators. There are very complicated ones that are used in intensive care units. But there is a feeling that some much simpler ones are the ones that these new companies like Dyson & Co come along with. And the expectation is that, the NHS will be receiving good numbers of these fairly quickly. So they're the things that I think are going quite well. What just makes me scratch my head is the whole testing regime. Now, Boris Johnson had symptoms yesterday afternoon, a cough, a temperature, and so he was tested. And clearly the same happened for Matthew Hancock. We're told by Michael Gove that Boris today has launched a new testing initiative. They've brought together businesses, government, and some university departments. Okay. And that it's really important that we up our level of testing, because frontline NHS staff need to be tested. Yes, I know. We've been saying this for weeks. There are people working in the National Health Service who will be coronavirus positive, who may even be passing this on to patients who are in hospital for other reasons. And yet, as we know, and we hear the cries and screams from NHS staff, they are not being tested. I mean, well, the truth is, virtually everybody in the country is being tested unless they're taken into hospital and seriously ill. So I can't say that I was particularly impressed to hear that this new testing regime is coming. I was also astonished that Sir Patrick Vallance, the Chief Scientific Officer, said he would not take the test. And indeed, Michael Gove and other cabinet ministers will not take the test because they're not displaying the symptoms. And it might be then too early to take the test. I would have thought those running the country should be tested every single day. I mean, what if they've all got it? After all, it looks like three of our senior players in this have gone down with this today, and albeit at the moment all three are experiencing mild symptoms. Let's hope it stays that way. But what if they really became poorly? What if the entire cabinet, what if all the people who are running this were to go down with this and be really poorly in the next few days? Who would run the country? And I can't believe, in the face of this, that Michael Gove, Sir Patrick Vallance and others are not being tested. I simply cannot get my head around that. And on a broader theme, of course, you test for antigens to see if people have got it. You test for antibodies to see if people have had it and are now hopefully immune and can go back to work and go back into the community. We're told there is perhaps some good news coming when it comes to the antibodies test. But on the antigens test, we are continuing to go down this route where we don't test people unless they are really quite ill. Do you know, Germany are testing 500,000 people a week. They've got the lowest death rate of any country in Europe at the moment. They appear to be really on top of this medically, not to say economically. They're doing pretty impressively on that score too. We, throughout the entirety of this, have only tested just over 100,000 people. Scientists disagree on many things, but the one thing that we've heard across the world, from South Korea to Germany to what we get from the World Health Organization, the one area in which there does appear to be a really big, strong scientific consensus is test, test, test. Find out who's got this disease, whether they know it or not, isolate them, quarantine them, work out who else they've been in contact with, and slow the spread of this. We have got now 14,000 confirmed cases. We were told today we can expect this to double in the next 3 days and to double in the 3 days after that. And yet, that is only scratching the surface of who's got this in this country. I'm afraid we've got some very, very bad times coming up over the course of the next few weeks. So take what you're being told seriously. Stay in self-isolation. And I think perhaps it's a moment when we should pray for a swift resolution to all of this.
We will make America great again.